Hi, good afternoon, and welcome back to our Larson Training School here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And my name is Manuel Jackson, and I'm a former graduate, and I've been asked to make an introduction today for the individuals who are going to be graduating today. And I just want to say that keep doing what you're doing, and Larson is a good place to be. And there are a lot of good things going to come from here and going to come for all of us. And let's just continue doing what we're doing. And I don't know how you guys feel about me, being here because I'm just as surprised to be here as you are. But I am very pleased to be here, and I wish the best for all of us. And there's something that I would like to say that is kind of spontaneous. There's an old saying that says, no man steps into the same stream twice, same river twice. And that can be with all of us here. When we first arrive, we were one way, and when we leave, we should be another way. And let's take everything that we have, let's take it, and let's spread it and bring it to fruition.
Good. Thank you, Manuel. Okay, so today we have our graduation for 3 people, Lynn, Veronica, and Mario. We'll be very sad for 2 of those people to leave. Okay. Mario, you're not first.
Say the best for last.
So, before we bring them up, I want to talk a little bit about the school and what we try to do. And last week I didn't do this until after we were off air, and I usually do it so that people understand. And on our school shield is a thing that looks like a sword or a dagger. That's actually a gladius. And so the school is called Larson Training Centers, but this is the Gladius Business School program. And one day we hope that this will become the next licensed university in Las Vegas, in Nevada, state of Nevada. That's something we're working on. So we have a gladius as on our shield, and a lot of people wonder why. And some people think, well, it's because of the students that we have, that it relates to their background or something. And I think that's not the actual reason, but it's fitting that it's that as opposed to a flower or something, because I don't think our students could really relate if it was a flower. But so that is a gladius. What is a gladius? What is a gladius?
Weapon they used, the Romans used.
What kind of weapon?
A sword.
A sword, yeah. Gladius means sword in Latin. So gladiator would be what?
Sword bearer.
A swordman. Swordman. So a man who has a sword. And this is a scale model, an actual size gladius. Not very big, not very impressive, not very scary, right? Because we're used to seeing like middle-aged things where people are wearing these suits of armor, and you have swords that are maybe 4.5 feet, 5 feet tall that you have to have with 2 hands, and that would literally just cut you right in half, or chop off your head, or slice you right down the middle. This is not like that. You can't be far away with this. You can only be basically an arm's length away from the person that you're getting against. So, so this in itself is not an impressive weapon. Or for a soldier, this is your tool. This is not an impressive tool. But when you think about it, or if you think about it for a second, this is the device, this is the tool that the Romans used to conquer the world. And the city of Rome was founded in about 753 BC. So that would make it about how many years old? 2,769 years. 2,769 years ago, the city of Rome was founded. And it was founded by two brothers. These two brothers were kind of like, they could fit into the school very well. They were orphaned when they were young. The legend is that they were taken in by a female wolf. She took care of them. Then a farmer and his wife found them and wanted them to become farmers. And when they became of age, they said, no, that's not exciting enough. We don't want to be farmers. So they said, we're going to go form our own city. We're going to start our own city. So they went out and they found a piece of land that they liked. It was strategically and for trade, it was in a good location near a river, inland, not right on the water, not on the ocean or the sea, the Mediterranean. Not there, in a good location, up on some hills. You could defend it, and it was good enough to have, 7 hills. It was good enough to have trade and do things, but you could be protected there. And then they just got into an argument about what are we going to call the city, our town. What are we going to call it? So they said, well, let's wrestle, and whoever wins gets to name the city. So one brother killed the other brother. And one story is that the brother who lost killed the other brother because he just couldn't take not being able to name the city. The other story is that the brother who won killed his brother while they were wrestling because the other one just wouldn't give up, because that's how important it was to them to have naming rights of the city. And his name was what? Romulus. The guy who won was named Romulus. Romulus. And what was his brother's name?
Remus.
Remus. Remus was his brother. And so the symbol of Rome is a wolf with 2 babies underneath it. So Romulus was a pretty smart guy. And he decided, okay, now I have this town, but I'm the only guy here. I need to bring people in. So he went out and he got people, but he wasn't able to get the smartest people, the best educated people, the wealthiest people. He got people that were kind of like our people. People who wanted to make something for themselves. They didn't want to be farmers. They just wanted to go out and have opportunity and do things. So they came in, and they're, a bunch of guys who wanted to do their own thing, and they didn't really care too much for the law. But when they came in, it became their town. Then they cared more about, let's make this thing work. I can't be out on my own. I need other people to be on my team. Life isn't going to last for long for me if I decide I'm going to keep being the outlaw, the guy on the outside of the law. So guess what happened? A lot of guys decided, hey, that sounds like a good idea. Where do I sign up? Okay, well, what was the problem?
Someone wanted to be boss.
No, Romulus was the boss. The problem was they didn't have any women.
It's a problem.
So longevity is kind of hard if all you have is a town full of guys. So they decided, well, hey, let's have this party, because they were street smart guys. Let's have a party. There's the Sabine tribe over there, a couple miles away. Let's invite them to this big banquet we're going to have. So they invited that town over. They had the party. The guys got drunk. They knocked them out, and they raped all the women and kept them. True story. Well, when the Sabine guys woke up, that was just, that will not stand, right? You just can't rape our women and think we're going to do nothing about it. So they were fighting against the Romans, and then the Romans came up with an idea of, well, why don't we join together and you come in and be part of Rome? And, they agreed. So Rome got larger by doing that. Then Rome got pretty successful at doing what it was doing, but to the north there was this other kingdom of people called the Etruscans. And they let the Romans do what the Romans did, but the Etruscans had a better army. They were much more disciplined. And it took about 250 years for the Romans to finally get rid of the Etruscans. And when they did that, the people who had the most to lose, the landowners, the people who had started Rome, said, well, let's form a government, but we are not going to have a king. Because kingship leads to what? Dictatorship, which leads to corruption, right? Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. So the Romans said, we are not going to do that. We have fought too long to get rid of that. This is our town. This is our city. And so they decided they were going to form a republic made up of the families who were the founding families of Rome and the important families of Rome. And so they then adopted this other thing here called SPQR, which stood for the Senate and People of Rome. So they set up a republic where their people would be ruled by a Senate, which was made up of people who had the most to lose, which was landowners. You could not be a business guy and be in the Senate. You had to have land, because back then, if you were a landowner, you had something to lose, right? If you weren't a landowner and the bad guys came, what could you do?
Right.
Yeah, you just leave. But if you have everything tied up in the land, you have crops you're growing, you have a house, you have stuff,
Right.
you just can't leave. So they said, you know, the people who have the most to lose are the people who have the most to say. If you want to be able to say something, you got to buy land. You got to be part of the system. You can't be a guy who comes and goes. So that worked, and then they decided, well, we need to be able to protect ourselves because there's all of these enemies out there. So they adopted a philosophy of anybody who's on our borders that's a threat, we need to do something about it because eventually they're going to try to take us over. And so they had to form an army. And you know, these are not people from Athens and Greece and educated people. These are people who are very practical, pragmatic people that are focused on success. And they had limited resources, but they decided, okay, well, we're going to have an army, and our army is going to be, we're going to win because we're going to be better trained than our opponents. But if you think about it, it's easier to be better trained on simple tools than it is complex tools, right? If you have to learn how to use a complex tool, it takes a long time, and not as many people can learn how to master that as a simple tool, right? Everybody get that?
Yes.
You know, it's not hard to train a lot of people how to use a hammer, but it could be hard to train a lot of people how to use a forklift, say, right? Or a grader or something. So the Romans said the best thing for us to do is train as many of our people as we can and have them very well disciplined and train, discipline, and we can only do that if we have simple tools. And that is where the gladius came from. So instead of starting with complicated things, they had simple things. Now eventually, they got to have very complicated weapons. The Romans created a sort of Gatling gun that shot out arrows. Okay, they had other things that could shoot like 10 arrows at one time for long distances. They had a thing that they called their landmine, which was a piece of iron that however you threw it out on the ground, there would be a spike that would land sticking straight up. So they'd make these things by the thousands, and they'd spread them out on the ground that the enemy had to cross to come to them. And if you were riding a horse, the horse would step on this thing, the spike maybe that long, would step on this thing, and guess what happens to the horse? Yeah, it's over. Now you got a guy who doesn't really have good shielding because he was on his horse, or the horse fell on top of him, or something. So they got sophisticated, but they started with a very simple thing. which was a gladius. And the gladius is also not so good because it's a thrusting weapon. It's not a hacking weapon. You don't do this. But if you do this and you're very good and you have your shield protecting you and part of the guy next to you, and you're just stabbing away, you're looking at, you're very well trained, so you might fake that you're going to stab the guy in the face and then stab him in the thigh. And what do you think happens to him if he gets stabbed in the thigh with something like this? He goes down and it's over. He's out. Or the guy's going to come up like this and slice your head open, and you come and stab under his armpit. What happens?
He died.
It's immediately over, right? He's a useless guy. The Romans had javelins called a pilum that they would first throw when you're about 25, 30 yards away. And the thing about the Roman javelins is it had a barb at the end. So when you guys are approaching you, they have shields, and you throw your javelin, what do people do with their shield, right? They put the shield like this to block it. Well, because of the way this javelin is made, it would pierce through your shield. Okay, but because it had the barb on there, it was hard to pull it out. And if you have a sword in this hand and your shield in this hand, what do you have to do to take this javelin out of your shield? Yeah, you have to drop down your sword and probably your shield. And then you had to pry this thing out because it's kind of like a fish hook going in. But then they were even smarter because they made the javelin out of soft metal, so once it hit something, it would bend. So what did that mean the enemy couldn't do?
Reuse it.
Yeah, they couldn't throw it back at you because it was bent. Okay, so it wouldn't go very far. So the Romans were very smart, practical, but the system was based upon something very simple. They took a simple thing and they kept adding to it. So why do we care? Why does this school care? Why does we care enough that this is the Gladius Business School? Because we take the same approach. You start with something very simple, and you master it, and you have discipline. You get very good at it. You get so good at it that it becomes easy to do the next thing. So for the Romans, the next thing was like a javelin, or ultimately it got to be these scorpions, things that would fire, and these Gatling guns that would fire stuff. Ultimately it got to that. But it all started with the very simple thing that everybody knew how to use a gladius, and when the giant Germans were charging at them with animal skins on their head and things like that, they did not run away. And if you watch the movie Gladiator, at the beginning of the movie it shows the Romans fighting against some Germans, and the Germans are off in the woods and they're yelling and howling, and the Romans are just kind of standing there waiting. Okay, you know, when do we go to work? And all of a sudden the Romans do it, and then they launch the artillery and the fire things and the catapults and the trebuchets and all of that stuff, and then the Romans start marching down as the barbarians are running out of the woods to get them, and then the Romans win, and that's how they did it. And so the point again is, it started with a very simple tool that they mastered, and they had the discipline to keep using, even when it, you know, most people would think you got to run because we can't beat these guys because they're just too big. So for us, the gladius is the typing. But nothing good can happen in terms of getting a career today and into the future, especially into the future, the foreseeable future. Nothing good happens if you can't type. And then you build on that. So you learn the other things that we learn. How to use Docs, how to use the other Google apps. But those only really have value if you can type. So that is why this thing is on our shield. And Manuel will also be getting one of these when they come in. And anybody else who does the memorization. if we had a second thing, so the Romans had their gladius, if we had a second thing that we really talked about, it would be the shield. Because if you're out there with the gladius but you don't have a shield, not really as good. It's not half as good. It's not necessarily bad. Because one thing about this is it is small enough that you can throw. And if anybody saw Gladiator, you might remember that he did throw this at a guy riding away on a horse. But the shield is the second thing, because the shield is what protects you. And for here, that is memorization, is being able to remember stuff. And so Manuel got the Chromebook because he memorized stuff, and he got the Gladius because he was able to memorize all the things that we do, and it just takes time, right? Yes. It's not a thing that you can't do it unless you tell yourself you can't do it. If you convince yourself you can't do it, you can't. But if you convince yourself that you can do it, it just takes time, even if it takes you one word at a time. Or if you have to draw pictures. Your brain will do it. It will believe, as we saw in a TED Talk this week, your brain will believe whatever you tell it. If you tell it you can't do it, it will not do it. It might take a lot longer for some people than other people, but it's possible to do. So that's where we come from. That's why we're here. And now we'll talk about the people who are graduating. So why don't we start with Veronica?
Yeah. All right.
How are you?
Well.
Good. Good answer. Okay. So see yourself on there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, move in a little bit. Okay. So when did you start, Veronica?
11:24.
What?
11:24.
11:24.
Mm-hmm.
That was about, what, 5 hours ago?
Yeah.
Good. So Veronica started when we were in the other building.
Mm-hmm.
And were you the first person? When did you start, Len?
11:24.
Same day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, the Clark twins.
Oh.
You're not? Okay. Okay, so Veronica started in November, and Veronica did not have a lot of skills. What did you start at typing?
10.
10. And what are you now?
55.
55. Wow. That's right. 55.
280.
280 10 What did you start at?
I was on 20.
20?
Yeah.
Okay. So Veronica started without a lot, and every day Veronica would just come in and do what the Romans would do. Just continue to practice developing the skills. And you didn't miss many days, right?
No.
A few doctor's appointments.
That's it.
And Veronica was committed to improving. When it came time to memorization, you did your best.
Mm-hmm.
And how far did you get?
Not too. I'd say 40%.
Well, which one? What's the last one? Which one would you be doing today?
I was doing the Lord's Prayer.
What?
The Lord's Prayer.
The Lord's Prayer. Okay. So, and then on her own, Veronica went out, got a job.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did.
So, you know, how has the school gotten better because of Veronica? I think the answer is that Veronica is somebody who came in, is the typical type person we have, set a good example of what you need to do, was not a problem. If she was called upon, she would answer. You didn't really volunteer a lot.
No.
Why not?
From school.
Fear?
Fear.
Okay, but you overcame your
I
fear.
overcame fear. Yes, I did.
Okay. So Veronica is just a solid type of person. And that's really what the Romans always were. They were just solid people that could be depended upon to show up every day and to do the best they could do.
Yep.
So for that, Veronica, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
And congratulations.
Thank
and so
you.
Veronica is completing 549 hours, and she did excellent in terms of typing in 10 key.
Thank you.
And you can come back whenever you want.
Okay. Oh, thank
So
you.
now you can say,
I'd like to thank Sherry, the director, putting up my tardiness because I was slow and I had too much pride. I had too much pride. I didn't ask questions. When I did, I got nervous when I asked questions. Now I'm up to speed, up to par. I can open up. I can open up before I couldn't open up. I didn't know how to open up. So, and my speech not that well. I need to go to a speech and learning school, something like that. You know, my speech is kind of off. So I'm trying. It's good. I think the school, but having me here, I experienced how to do Google Plus, clouds, and I learned a whole lot. And this is a good school to come to. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so another solid person, Lint. So Lint is another person that exhibits Roman virtues of showing up, being here, doing the best that he can. And every day, like yesterday, heading home, driving back, driving down Las Vegas Boulevard, and who is it that's walking back to Catholic Industries? Oh no, you're at Salvation Army.
Yeah, to the.
Walking back there was Lint, just, you know, doing the thing that you do. And Lint has been, now you seem to every day want to contribute.
Yes, because that's very interesting.
Okay.
The talks are great.
But when people come here and they talk and we go around the room and say, where are you from? You sometimes say, why do you want to know?
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, because I was brought up as a traveler in my early years I know nothing about.
Oh, okay.
You know, I mean, I was little.
Okay. Like, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah, well, I was
Okay.
5 years old. Yeah,
Okay.
5 years ago.
Okay. So, so Lint has been, and to you guys sitting next to Lint, how was Lint?
Great.
Good to be with? Not like that other guy on the other side.
Easy for both opposites.
The other side.
Okay.
Why do you have a guilty conscience,
I got
Mario?
it.
Must be that Mario G thing. Okay, so, but Lint, you've made the school better because when we have had guests come in here, before people come in and we say this is a school, the idea is that they're young like Anthony, they're younger people. When we have people that are, what are you, about 45?
62.
62, okay. When we have people come in that are 62, that just, they do what they need to do every day. And when did you leave Catholic Charities?
3 weeks ago.
Okay, so from that, before that you were walking every day?
Yes.
To and from?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you had to take your house with you, right?
Right.
Your possessions.
Right.
And you had to get back there.
Right.
And you didn't get anything. No lunch.
Right. It doesn't leave you much room to live much of a life else besides going here and back.
So, and, you know, the thing is, my hunch is most of the people didn't even know that about Lynn. Because he didn't make a point of saying, woe is me, boo-hoo, I don't get a bus pass, I don't get food, I can't leave my stuff there, they won't save a bed for me. Again, you know, Roman virtues are just coming in, showing up, doing what is expected of you to the best of your abilities. And so, what did you start? What was your typing speed when you started?
Words per minute were 4.
4. Okay. So you made almost a 300% improvement.
Yeah. Yes.
So, you know, that, not everybody does increase their score by 300%.
Yeah, and typing is not a forte of mine. I mean, it's nothing I practiced on for 40 years of working in life. I never had to use a typewriter or internet or anything like that.
So you really started from scratch.
Yes.
So 4 words, just so for people who don't know, 4, or for people out there in the rest of the world, 4 words per minute means if you have to type the word apple, you say apple. A. Okay, where's the A? A. Apple. A, P. P. Where's the P? P. Apple. A, P, P. P. Where's the P? P. And that's how fast you go when you're typing 4 words a second. It means you don't know where the keys are and you don't remember where the keys are. So going from 4 to 11 is like going from 20 to 120. It's that much, because if at 20 you know where the keys are. You have a basic idea of where the keys are, and you can remember it. So if you type apple, you have a basic idea of where the P is, but the second P you already know. So you have a lot to be commended for, and I think that you are the oldest graduate
Oh, that's nice.
here in Las Vegas. So we'll get a plaque or we'll do something special for you for that. So, Link, you made the school better because you showed up, you did your work, you participated, you tried to contribute, you did the best you could, and you're an example about not complaining. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so you have your certificate of completion, 678 hours. How did you pull that off?
I just couldn't go any longer. I had to
See, the
quit.
guy came in all the time. We didn't even notice he was coming. He was just so here every day. That could be a school record. The most number of hours in 16 weeks.
How much did you get?
678. So did you miss any time?
No, I didn't miss it.
Okay.
I had to take a Friday off when I moved.
Okay. And 107 words per minute on 10 key. There you go. So if you'd like to say something to the world.
All right, thank you, Mr. Director, and sorry for putting up with me, but this is an experience. It's not all that people talk about out there. There's people at shelters, there's people at jail, there's people at prisons, there's people that are living in poor lives that would like to make something of themselves, but if you brought them into a place like this, right away, all they're going to do is put it down and rank it because they can't stick with it. They aren't able to finish anything themselves. And knowing that I was behind on my computer, my learning abilities made it hard, but this being the type of place that it was made it interesting. And interest is what peaks education, I think. So I thank you.
Okay. Again, thank you. Okay, everybody, that concludes our ceremony. Oh, sorry.
Save the best for last. Huh?
Right.
Save the best for last. Excuse me. Pardon me.
He's trying to get the camera.
Yes. Okay, well, first let me say my part. Okay, we'll just do this. That'll make it easy for me. Okay, well, I guess you're wondering what we're doing here, Mario.
Yeah, about time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as it was for Lint, that Lint was here for 678 hours. Mario, we had to give him an extra 200 hours to get him up to the number.
Really?
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Okay. Because even though he might have physically been here for 520 hours, if we subtracted all the times that he had boo-boos,
And my dog was sick.
his dog was sick.
Don't go easy on them.
So Mario started over on the other side also. When did you start? What? December, November?
1st, yeah.
December 1st.
Yeah.
And you found out about the school somehow through parole or something? How did you find out about the school?
Friend of mine.
Okay. Your parole officer?
I think so. I think
Okay,
it was.
I think it was. Okay, just checking.
Not a friend of mine.
Okay. Mario came in, he was very clear, I have some challenges. And if we were able to go back to the first Friday that Mario was doing his thing to how he is now, everybody would notice a very big difference. Now, usually because you're around somebody all the time, you're not aware of how much people have changed. Now, he's still a hot dog. That hasn't changed. But the skill levels that Mario has developed have changed quite a bit. And when I am here doing other things and I observe, because that's part of my job is to observe what else is going on. When I observe Mario back there engaged in making calls on behalf of SPQR, he's engaged, he's doing it fully, he's doing it committed, and he's kind of like the Roman guy who, when it's time to go to battle, they're 100%. When the battle's over, it's fun, party time, hey guys, let's celebrate our victory. So, and that's the side of Mario that we all experience 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, unless he's not here, right?
That's true.
So, but the other side of Mario is the back there, focused, doing what he needs to do, making calls. When he's on the phone making calls, he's engaging, he's compelling, right, Robert?
Yes, very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, so what my suggestion is, that's the kind of stuff that you keep doing, is to keep pursuing things that are, for a lot of people, they're a challenge. Most of the people in here didn't even want to go make calls, right? Is that right, Robert?
That's right.
Okay. Most people didn't even want to make calls. So, so that makes Mario's efforts and his accomplishments even stronger, because not only was he willing to do it, not only did he do a good job, he did it. And that's a trait, that's a thing that we should all learn from. Most of the time what we deal with is people, we all have our image of ourselves, this is who I am, and we admit it hasn't really worked, which is why we're here. It hasn't worked, but I'm not willing to give up who I see myself as. And so when it comes to doing something we don't like to do, our first reaction, our first response is to say, how can I get out of doing that? But really the thing to do is what Mario did when he's on the phone, what Lint did every day when he showed up, is, these aren't the things I want to do. There's a lot of things I would rather do, but here's what I am going to do. I'm going to do this. And, we get conditioned out there from our environment and people around us to, if there's a chance that we might be able to get away with something, instead of making people proud that we did it or being proud in ourselves, I could have done something I shouldn't have done, we think of how can I get away with doing something I'm not really supposed to do or I shouldn't do, it's not in my best interest. We oftentimes take that approach, and that's why most of the people are here. This is why, this is the Stanford of vocational schools. The people who do it the other way, they're at the other Stanford, not at this Stanford, they're at the other Stanford, because they are driven by doing things that make other people proud of what they did and making themselves feel proud of what they did. And so, one thing we can all be proud of regarding Mario is when it came time to helping out on something that is important, and what SPQR is doing is important, because it's changing the status quo here in Las Vegas from just going along with what the system has always been and complaining about it, to actually trying to help people who can make change get into a place where they can make change. So Mario needs to really be congratulated for taking the time and energy to do that thing that could have long-term impact. And even if we don't get this first election here, we learned a lot, right, Robert? Right, Rodney? We learned a lot that we need to transition to the next group of students so that when it comes to the election in 2016, we can go out and get 50,000 people registered and help those people make the right decision of who to vote for, not just to vote because they're in a party and that's how we always vote, not to do that, but to vote for the right person. And so it started right here with SPQR. And, you know, fortunately, Mario got to work with Rodney and Robert, who took the time to make sure that everybody in SPQR is doing what they did. But you get the credit because you actually did it. You didn't come up with the reasons not to.
Amen.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Mario's numbers are 531 hours.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And 20 words per minute. Now, what did you start at?
Oh,
25?
no, I think it was more like 19.
Okay.
Maybe 7. 7.
Was it?
Maybe 7.
So,
I'm a really
again,
good typer.
well, but again, that
Got
is,
better.
it's going to be easier to go from 20 to 50 than from where you went to 20.
Yeah.
And so, again, congratulations. Here's your certificate.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know we're in Las Vegas, but from now on, every day is going to be summertime for me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so Robert, why don't you come up? Robert, why don't you come up here since we started talking about SPQR, let's talk a little bit about SPQR, and Robert can give acknowledgement to the people who did do stuff that are making things happen.
All right. So, first of all, a lot of people have done it. Some that we can't thank, for obvious reasons, But Veronica, Billy has really made a lot of phone calls. He's done a lot of the canvassing with us. Rodney, Eric has come a long way in the phone calls. He can navigate. I wouldn't be surprised if in another week or so Eric could work in a call center. He's got it down very well. Who else? Lisa, who's not here today, she did a lot. She made a lot of phone calls, did a really good job. And to see things on such a local level, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's strange. It's weird. I was just now looking at some of the numbers. Okay, so for this election, there's been 1,700 votes cast in this race. It historically in these city council races, 40% of the vote comes in during the early voting. So already, if this formula holds true, that's 200 more votes at this time than in 2012, the last 2011. So that's 200 votes. That the difference is that's us, that we can almost single-handedly say, hey, you know what I mean? That's a 200 vote increase just right there. Just you can see on paper a fact that has happened. And then you say, well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if the total winner only needs 3,400 votes, 200, now that's a big percentage.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And we've only been doing this for 3 weeks. Imagine if we'd have had the full campaign time. We started 6 months out. So, you know what I mean? Making these phone calls, So, one, I'm not like ready to say, oh, we're not going to win. Like you're like, even if we don't, or what have you, because when you see the numbers, it's still a possibility. You know what I mean? It's still a very possibility of winning. And with needing numbers, I said we just double our production to 400. You know what I mean? That's a number that makes an effect, and it means double, because those 400 people that vote, that's a vote from somebody else. So he loses one and we gain one. So that's really like 800. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it does make a difference. Now, 800, what's the math real quick of 3,400? What percent is
that's
that?
A quarter.
You know what I mean? We're a quarter. That's a quarter of a way of getting somebody in office. So now when we go to somebody and say, hey, a quarter of your votes, that got you in office came from us. This is how we want for our school. They've got to listen. They've got to. Because you demonstrated and you can show that now we're going to get you out of here. You know what I mean? That's a big deal.
Agreed.
All right.
Mario wants to say something. I don't know what it is.
Excuse me.
You better not steal my trick for prestidigitation
I forgot to say thank you. I forgot to say thank you to all the other students who've always helped me out whenever I needed help, especially Phyllis and our director and his wife, Sherry. Excellent. Everyone here is helping each other out all the time. It's just couldn't be a better learning environment. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you again, Mario.
No problem.
Okay, everybody. let's have our break time, quick break, and we'll finish up with round 3. Manuel, do you want to say something here? You want to say goodbye? Since you started.
Thanks again for allowing me to be here.
Okay.
And it's a pleasure to be a part of this.
Great.
And have a pleasant day.
To the world.
To the world.
Okay, world, have a pleasant day.
Have a pleasant day. World, have a pleasant day.